All right, good evening, Southwest Missouri Democrats. In solidarity to my union brothers and sisters here this evening, I can tell you, our nasty girls, they join unions. My name's Billy Moffitt, and I am the Missouri campaign lead for the Communications Workers of America and the vice chair of Cass County Democrats a couple hours, north of here. I'm very proud to be a 23-year card-carrying member of CWA. I would proudly call my family. I would proudly call my family middle class, as my union has bargained decent wages, decent benefits, and trained me skills to be successful. I believe every worker deserves the right to organize and the right to be paid a decent wage. Unfortunately, Senator Roy Blunt has spent the last 20 years looking at ways to shrink the middle class. When he's had a chance to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, he voted against it. However, he's had no problem raising his own pay 12 times over the course of the last 20 years in office. Most of the Republican Party has spent years trying to weaken organized labor by passing right-to-work laws. These laws lower household income by over $6,500 a year, or about 12% less. Cause higher poverty rates, lower rates of health care coverage, cause more injuries and deaths on the job due to inadequate training, and reduce economic growth in our communities. If Senator Blunt is sent back to Washington, he very well could be the deciding vote on the national right-to-work bill. Right now in Congress, there's a nasty trade bill called the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, or TPP for short. This trade agreement would force more of our US-based jobs out of the country to countries like Vietnam, who pay 65 cents an hour, allow foreign corporations to bypass US laws, does nothing to strengthen international labor right protections, and it will give global banks even more power. And most importantly, it'll take America out of Buy America. Senator Roy Blunt voted to fast-track this trade agreement and supports passing it in its entirety. I'm sorry for all the doom and gloom. That's not why I'm here. I'm not trying to take the room down, Chris. I apologize. But I do have some great news. This election year, we have a true champion on the ballot that is ready to do what's right for Missourians. In the Missouri House, Jason worked across party lines to help pass a major ethics reform bill. As our Secretary of State, Jason has reduced the operating budget year after year to run the most efficient office possible and save Missouri taxpayers money. And finally, in the United States Senate, Jason will work to raise the minimum wage, make sure everyone is paid the same regardless of what your sex is, strengthen labor rights by giving workers protections to be able to organize, and vote to kill bad trade deals such as the TPP, which I will point out, Jason was the first candidate running for Senate that came out against TPP last year, so I think that deserves it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great honor I introduce my fellow Kansas Citian, our current Secretary of State, and our next United States Senator from the great state of Missouri, Jason Kander.
Thank you, Billy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Billy. Thank you to all of you. I think we should start by talking about Krista, who's doing a pretty great job. So you were saying that if there's a sweep, you're gonna blue highlights. Somebody told me that you used to say you would dye it all blue, which makes me think that you're getting cold feet. It's getting more and more likely, and you're getting nervous. You didn't think it would happen. Now you do. Look, thank you all so much for having me here. Thank you for all of your support. As I go around the state, one of the things that people sometimes say to me that I find a little bit surprising, because I don't really agree, is they'll say, well, hey, I know it's really tough out there. Thank you for doing this. And the truth is, this is not tough. Campaigning for the United States Senate is not tough. I thought I'd start by telling you about something that is tough. I thought I'd tell you about a particular day that was tough so you can compare the two. So, I'm going to take this off here. All right. So, am I the only Royals fan in here, or are there a few other Royals fans?
Yeah!
All right. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. It was mixed reaction. That's all right. That's what happens in Southwest Missouri. I understand. But look, I'm a pretty big Royals fan, and I will tell you about my lowest day as a Royals fan, which also happened to be a day that took place for me in the United States Army. So for those of you who are Royals fans, you will remember that 2003 was a winning season, and that was the first winning season of my adult life. It was a big deal in my life. All of a sudden, and I went into the summer of 2004 thinking that it was just going to be the greatest thing ever, absolutely convinced that the Royals were going to win because they'd been so good in 2003. 2004, for me, that summer also happened to be a summer that I spent at a place called Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was in officer training for the Army. How many veterans do we have in the room? Raise your hand. Okay, can we give these folks a round of applause? So, the folks who raise their hand know that when you're in training like that, you don't actually get very much information from the outside world. Your newscaster, so to speak, is the drill sergeants, the sergeants that are there. They tell you what's going on in the outside world. So to the extent you have any idea what's happening outside of Fort Lewis in this case, it comes from the sergeants. And on this day, my lowest day, it was June 24th, 2004, my lowest day of Royals fandom. I remember it well. It was my platoon's day to go through the gas chamber at Fort Lewis, which the veterans here know how bad it is, and for the rest of you, just imagine it, it's at least that bad. You go through and you can't breathe, and you come out and there's stuff coming out of your face that you didn't know was in your face in the first place. It's a miserable experience. And I'm standing there just trying to get some wind back into my lungs, and finally my morale is starting to get, I thought it was as low as it could go. I'm starting to get some of it back as I'm getting the air back in my lungs. And then Master Sergeant Williams, I remember, walks up and he's asking Kander, where's Kander? So I get up to my feet, go to parade rest. I say, right here, Sergeant. He says, aren't you from Kansas City? And I said, yes, Sergeant. He says, the Royals are in dead last and they just traded Carlos Beltran. So that was tough. This is not tough. This is not even remotely tough. That was actually tough. Something else that is actually tough, and one of the things that keeps me motivated to do what I'm doing, is the squeeze that is being put on the middle class in this country right now. That is something that is tough, that the middle class is being asked to do. Let me ask a question that you may be surprised by. I might listen to the way I ask it. Raise your hand if your current financial situation is affected by the student loans of somebody in your family, a child, a grandchild, yourself. Okay, now look around. It's like at least half the room. So this is what the other side doesn't understand about this issue and doesn't understand about the middle class. I really think that when they think about the issue, and I'm using this just as an example, when they think about the issue of student debt, they think that it is something that affects people between the ages of 18 and 25, and that's it. You know, my opponent, Senator Blunt, has said that the reason that students have debt is because of their lifestyle during college. And perhaps he thinks the extra bowl of ramen in the microwave is causing an average of $26,000 in student debt for students in Missouri. I don't think that it's the extra bowl of ramen in the microwave that's causing that. It's not. It's over the generations, it's affecting multiple generations right now in the middle class. About 6 or 8 weeks ago, I was actually here in Joplin, and I met somebody, her name was Stacy. She was a little bit older than me. Stacy has her own business. She has a graduate degree and an undergraduate degree, and in order to get the graduate degree, her father stepped in and helped her pay down a big portion of her debt from undergrad. And in doing so, he put his own retirement off by about a decade. Stacy also has a daughter who's a freshman in high school right now, and they're approaching a time where her daughter's starting to think about college, starting to talk about college. And Stacy told me that she's worried about having that conversation with her because she's still got loans from her graduate degree and she's not sure how to talk to her daughter about how she's going to be able to help her pay for school. So Stacy, who all she was doing what we expect of her, furthering her education so that she can earn a good wage for her family. Now, what's happened in her middle class family is that her father has put off his retirement. She is concerned about her own situation, and her daughter is going to confront that when her daughter looks at how she's going to pay for school. So in Stacy's family, that's 3 generations of a middle-class family affected by one set of student loans. And you can't tell me that that's exclusively because of choices that Stacy made during school. It's simply not. That is the big difference in this race, and it's the big difference right now in this country, is in how we understand what the middle class is going through. We understand that for far too long, Congress has put millionaires and billionaires and special interests who can afford access to politicians ahead of everybody else, including the folks who are working multiple jobs when 15 years ago, they were working one job and making more money. That is who they're putting all of this ahead of. And it's wrong, and we know that it's wrong. What we also know is that the middle class and working people in this country, they're not asking for a handout, they just want a level playing field. Because with a level playing field, they can do an awful lot. The American middle class can do an awful lot with a level playing field. Now, it is my belief that what we need are more folks who understand that college has to be affordable, or middle-class families are going to struggle under that kind of debt for generations. We need more folks who understand that the middle class needs a tax cut a lot more than a multinational corporation needs another tax loophole. And we need people who understand that it is wrong when women are paid less than men for doing the exact same job. In short, we just need people who understand that America is at its best when the middle class is at its strongest. And it was said several times tonight that it's the year of the woman. I wanted to just tell you a story from my life about my mom that I thought you might enjoy, and then I'll get out of your hair. So I can remember when I was about 11 or 12 years old, my mom picked my brothers and I up from baseball practice. And she ended up, I don't think she knew she was going to teach us a lesson that day, but she ended up doing that. She asked us, we got in the car and we were driving home, she was driving, and she asked us, she said, "What would you boys think about a girl being on your baseball team?" Now, one of my brothers scoffed at that and said, "No, that didn't make," like a 10 or 11-year-old kid does. And my mom asked why, and he said, "Well, it's tradition, girls don't play baseball." So my mom pulled the car over and opened up the passenger door and said, "Well, I guess y'all better walk." And we said, "Why?" And she said, "Because it's tradition, girls don't drive." So we got a little over 2 weeks left in this race, and let me just tell you what to expect the rest of the way. You are not going to see any shortage of ads on TV from Senator Blunt and his special interest allies saying all sorts of mean things. That's okay. They're going to do that because they have made an investment in Senator Blunt. I use that term quite purposefully. They've made an investment over 20 years in somebody who wakes up every morning thinking about what he can do for the special interests that fund his campaign and fund his lifestyle. And he's going to continue, if he's reelected, to do everything he possibly can for them. Now, he's going to have those special interests. They're going to spend all that money. But he can have them because I have you. I have the people who will knock on doors and make the phone calls and get this done. And you are the reason that we have taken a lead and that we have all the momentum in this race. So, yeah. And there's one other reason too, and this is some of the good news for you to take home. And that is that there is a new generation that's stepping forward in this country right now. Krista was talking about all the young people that are here. I can just tell you that I am not interested in being distracted by or in joining this dark choir of politicians that still tell us that our country is doomed or that this generation is incapable of greatness. Because I have seen members of this generation sign on the dotted line and enlist when they knew doing that probably meant going to war. And I've seen some of them after they get hurt, asked to be sent back as soon as possible. I've seen them come home and work alongside civilians their age to try and make the greatest country on earth the very best version of itself. It is a generation that is more focused on ideas than on ideology, and a movement that defines patriotism not by somebody's eagerness to send other folks to war, but by their willingness to do what's right no matter the political cost. And we need more people in Washington, in both political parties, who have voluntarily been through something in their lives that is more difficult than a re-election campaign. And I'll tell you what, Washington, we know is broken, but we're not going to change Washington until we change the people we send there. And it really is time for the next generation to step up and take the lead in shaping the direction of our state and of our nation. With your help, it's exactly what I'm going to do as your United States Senator. So thank you.